Let me show you how to play your first guitar chords. In this tutorial for beginners, I'm going to show you a number of things. I'm going to show you obviously the 3 chords. Secondly, I'm going to show you what problems you might have with playing them and how you can correct them. I'll also show you a basic, very basic strumming technique. And lastly, I'm going to show you a way that you can make the chord changes a little bit easier, so you can get from one chord to another with less stress. Now this is a pretty deep dive into the world of guitar playing, but I promise you, if you stick at it, it'll all be worth it. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you some songs that you'll be able to play, and I mean complete songs, not little snippets like a bit of a verse or a bit of a chorus, but whole songs that you'll be able to play with just these 3 chords. So why have I chosen these particular 3 chords? Well, for a start, with just these 3 chords, you can play hundreds of songs, like I mentioned earlier. And many of these songs are rock and roll classics from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, etc. And I'll give you loads of examples later. And also there's something about these 3 chords and their position on the guitar fretboard that actually I think makes it easier to go from one chord to another without too much faffing about. And I'll show you what I mean about changing from one chord to another as we get on with this lesson. So now let's look at what these 3 guitar chords are and how to form them. Basically, how to put your fingers in the right positions on the guitar. The 3 chords are all what we call major chords and open chords. Now, major chords are those chords that are happy and have a vibrant, ringing out type of sound, while open chords basically means that these chords have strings that you play, but you don't put your fingers anywhere on the strings themselves. You don't fret them, and you'll see what I mean as we get through this video. So let's have a look at the open A major chord. So when you start out learning guitar chords, you often see them in this form. This is called a guitar chord diagram or a guitar chord chart. And this is a really simple representation of a guitar chord. And what you see now is the open A major chord, or simply the A chord, or even simpler, just A. So let's take a moment now to see how guitar chord diagrams work. So here's the chord diagram for an A major chord, an open A major chord. And the lines going down are the strings. And from left to right, they are the low E string, the thickest string, which is string 6. Not string 1, but string 6. Then we have the 5th string, also known as the A string. The 4th string, which is the D string. The 3rd string, which is the G string, and the 2nd string, which is the B. Then finally, we get to string number 1, which is the high E string. So 6 and 1 are the same string name. String 6 is the low E, and string 1 is the high E. Now going across, we have the frets, and the frets are these metal bars. And this is fret 1, fret 2, fret 3, and so on, all the way up the fretboard. And if we talk about moving from fret 1 to fret 2, then we say we're going up, like I just said now, going up the fretboard. So we go up from fret 1 to fret 2. And if we talk about moving from fret 2 to fret 1, then it's the opposite, you're going down. So up is going this way, all the way up to the 12th or the 15th fret, and going down is that way, going this way here, away from you. So what do these numbers here, numbers 2, 3 and 4 mean? Well, these are your fingers and they show where they go on the fingerboard. And the numbering is always the same. So number 1 will be your first finger, number 2 will be your second finger, number 3 will be your third finger, and number 4 will be your little finger. And you won't use or need any more than that. So for the A chord, you're using your second, third and fourth fingers on the 2nd fret on different strings. So your second finger is on the D or the 4th string, Your third finger is on the G or third string, and finally your fourth finger is on the B or the second string. Another thing you're definitely going to see on guitar chord diagrams are X's and O's at the top. Now X's and O's signify two things. X's mean don't play the string, and O's mean play the string. So if you look at the diagram for the A major chord, you will see that there is an X on the low E string. So don't play that string. Whereas on the fifth string and the first string, you will see two O's. So you will play those strings. So basically you're playing string 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1 when you're strumming this chord. Now for the moment, I would stress, don't worry too much about hitting those X strings at the moment, really. Don't worry about it. Don't let it stress you out. In fact, don't fret. Okay, so let's put that A major chord on and see how it feels. So, as I said, second finger on the second fret of the D string, this fourth string. The third finger right behind it on the third string, the G string. And that little finger there behind that one as well on the B string, the second string. And one thing you'll notice is while you're doing that, your fingers are not right close on the fretboard. They're slightly kind of diagonalish, with the little finger being closest to the fret. And you'll get something like this once you've been practicing for a while. Now, one of the main problems with the major chord like this, the A major chord, is that you might get a situation where the strings buzz. And this is really normal at first and nothing to stress about, okay? And there are a number of reasons. Now, it could be that, your fingers aren't close enough to the frets. Now, if they're too far away, you'll get something like this. It's pretty horrible, right? Okay. And the other thing is, if your fingers are right on the frets, you'll get that, all right? So your fingers shouldn't be too far away or right on, man. They should just be as close as you can get them. And look, and as you can see, my little finger, I can feel this part of my finger, this little bit there of my finger, touching the fret. But the rest of the fingers are as close as can be to get them sounding good. So, you're bunching up your fingers as much as you can. And finally, the third problem could be is that you're not pressing down hard enough. And this is I think a problem that beginners have when their fingers start to hurt. As I said, that will happen. You cannot escape the pain. And so you will need to break through that pain barrier, but you will have to press down quite hard to get all those strings sounding clear. Because if you don't and you're not pressing hard enough, it'll either be buzzing or just nothing. So that's not hard enough, or you'll get this. All right, that's a pretty horrible sound. So this is going to take some time, but ideally you want to get that kind of sound. So those are problems that can be easily fixed, and they can be fixed just by, and I'm going to say it, practicing. Now, at least half an hour a day. Maybe you can play 10 minutes 3 times a day, 15 minutes twice a day, whatever it is, but I really do recommend that you play for half an hour a day. This will really get your fingers used to doing this. It'll get your fingers used to going on the fretboard, holding down the strings, getting ready to change from one chord to another. As you practice regularly, you'll develop muscle memory, and this will become part of who you are. Okay, so let's look at our second chord of the day. And the second chord is the open E major chord. So on the screen now, you can see the chord diagram, and you'll see that there are 2 O's on here, which means you're going to be playing all 6 strings with this chord. So let's have a look at the fingering now. Let's look at what fingers you put and where. We have the first finger, the second finger and the third finger. And the first finger will go on the first fret of the G string, which is the 3rd string here. Your third finger will go on the next string, which is the 4th string, the D string, and then your second finger tucks in nicely there on the 5th string, also known as the A string. Okay, and as I said, the 6th string, the low E string and the high E string, there are O's right there, so you will play all of those strings and you will get a nice sound like this. And this is one of the, I think it's one of the greatest major chords that you can play. So once again, first finger, first fret of the G string, the third finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, and the second finger, same fret as the third finger, but on the A string. And play them all. Now, potential problems that you might have with the E major chord, well, there aren't too many actually. The main one though is with this first finger here. Now sometimes if your finger isn't arched enough, it will touch the next string. In this case the B string or the 2nd string. And you will get that kind of sound. So you want to make sure that your finger is nicely arched so that both strings are ringing out pretty cleanly. And that's really the main problem with the open E major chord. And as with the other chord, the A major chord that we just talked about, you know, your fingers should be as close to the fret. Remember, the frets are these metal bars going across. So as close to the fret as you can. So obviously with these 2 fingers here, the third finger will be closer to the fret than the 2nd finger. But you should be close enough to make sure that you are pressing down and getting a clean sound. What we're going to do now is try playing the A major chord and then the E major chord. And we're going to try and put them together in a very, very simple rhythm. Nothing too flash. So you've got your A chord. Your A chord looks like this, and your E chord looks like this. And we're going to talk about chord transitioning, or chord changing, or chord switching. Basically what that means is going from one chord to another, from A to E, from A to E. And so when we go from these 2 chords, obviously when we're playing we need to keep the rhythm at the same speed. We don't want to be slowing down, we don't want to be speeding up. So we need to work out how we can go from A to E without slowing down, without stalling, without stopping. And this is where a little technique comes in that I used when I started. And we're looking at fingers that these 2 chords have in common. Because one thing we don't really want to be doing is we don't want to take off the fingers on the A chord and then sort of go over here somewhere before trying to put the E major chord down. Because then coming from wherever your hand's just gone back to the E major chord when you're starting out is going to be a real drama. So if we look at the 2 chords, here's the A major chord. And the thing about this chord here is if we look at these 2 fingers on the A major, this is the 2nd finger, this is the 3rd finger. And if we look at the E major chord, there's the E major chord. Here is the 2nd finger, here is the 3rd finger. Now these 2 fingers are kind of grouped together and they are in the same position, not in the same strings, but in the same position. So there's E major, and then switching back to A major, you'll see that they are pretty close together. So when you go from A major, take this finger off, lift these 2 up as well, keep them together, Try not to separate them, but keep them together. And then you're just going to go over one set of strings here. So from the third and the fourth string to the fourth and the fifth string. And then you'll put them down, and then to complete the E major chord, you'll put your first finger on the first fret of the G string or the third string. All right? And so that's a little technique that you can use when starting out to help you get from one chord to another. So with the E major chord and the A major chord, these two fingers, you can kind of keep them together, right? Keep them stuck together like that, because you're going from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. Obviously with the rest of the chord on, like so. As you can see, there's your A major chord, there's your two fingers, here's the E major chord, here's those two fingers just shifting over from one set of strings to the next, and then the first finger's coming down. So let's try slowly practicing those two chords together. So on the screen now you can see a chord progression. Now a chord progression tells you basically what to play, and on the screen the progression is telling you to play 2 bars of A major, then 2 bars of E major. Now 1 bar consists of 4 down strums, okay, and a strum is just this. That's a down strum. And what you see here is you see the A and then forward slash, forward slash, forward slash. So that means strum A once, twice, 3, 4 times. And as you can see here, you will do 8 down strums of A major. Then you will go from A major to the E major chord, as I said before, without slowing down, without speeding up. And the other thing that you see on this chord progression, what look like colons, well, they are colons, but here what they mean is they are repeat marks. So basically what you're going to do, you're going to play your bars, A bar, another bar of A, bar of E, bar of E again, and then you will repeat that over and over again until you've had enough or your fingers start to drop off. So let's play this chord progression together. As I said, you'll be playing a bar of A, bar of A, bar of E, bar of E. And we're going to repeat this 3 times, and we're going to do this pretty slowly. And now to strum, you can use one of these things here. This is a plectrum, or if you don't have a plectrum, you can use your thumb and just do this, like that there. Or your first finger and just do that, kind of like stroking the strings. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you keep it steady. So let's have a go. Let's play this together. Come on, courage now, let's do it. So I'm going to count us in. I'm going to give a count of 4 and then we play. So like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's how we're going to start. So with a count of 4 and then we begin. And remember, keep the rhythm as steady as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we're doing here is, or what we're doing there, is playing rhythm. Okay, and one of the things about this rhythm is that it's all about keeping time. Okay, that's what it is. It's all about keeping time. And one of the main problems is that when beginners start playing, they spend their time looking like this, looking at the chords, right, while they're playing, which, okay, is pretty natural, I have to say. But that means you're forgetting about this hand. And when you forget about this hand, that's when things slow down. So my advice would be focus more on this hand and keep this going. Doesn't matter if, as you're doing this, it takes you 3 minutes to get to the next chord and then you miss maybe a bar. This hand is still going to be going. You're going to keep it steady and it will force you to start putting the chord on at the right time. But if you're just looking at this, you will then stop and then go, okay, now I've got to change, I've got to do this, put this finger here, do, la, di, 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 by which time the song's finished. So try and keep more focus here, keep focus on the rhythm, the fact that you've got to keep going here. And then your changes will get smoother, naturally. So let's talk a little bit more about strumming. And now, as I said, strumming, you could strum with a plectrum, you could strum without a plectrum at this moment. It doesn't really matter. And strumming is all about the rhythm, okay? As I was just talking about now, keeping the rhythm steady. And for this guitar tutorial, all we are using is down strum, and down strums, I should say. And it's just this, isn't it? You saw me doing it. Whether I was using my thumb, your hand is going down. Whether you're using the finger, your hand is going down. Whether you're using the plectrum, your hand is going down this direction. Now, sometimes in a chord progression, you might see how the strumming is shown. And here on the screen are a couple of simple examples. So you might see arrows going down, or you might see the letter D, and the D stands for down. So also there are different types of strumming, but sometimes one of the most basic ones is just down, up strumming. And so you might see an arrow going down, followed by an arrow going up. You might see the letter D, followed by the letter U, down, up, down, up. And so this is how that chord progression we just looked at, the A, E, E chord progression, this is how it could look like with the strumming shown, right? So you will see that we've got the 2 bars of A, we've got the 2 bars of D, and then you'll see an arrow just going down, or you could see it with the letter D. Me personally, I prefer the arrows. I think it's more visual or something like that. So what problems could there be with strumming? Well, generally at this stage, the only problems are, just keeping in time and hitting the right strings. Now, to keep in time, you could obviously count in your head, count aloud, you could tap your foot, or you could use something called a metronome. And a metronome is basically a little click that keeps you in time. And you can find many examples of online metronomes, and I'll have a link down below in the description of a few free ones. And they just, click, 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 and you just strum with the click. Now, as for hitting, the right or the wrong strings, well, again, that's something that will come with practice, that will come with time. But at the moment, okay, with the A chord, as I said, the A chord is the top 5 strings technically. But if you play all strings, at this stage, don't worry about it. Just get used to playing the chord, get used to strumming, get used to putting the chord on and changing from one chord to another. Don't worry too much if you do this. It's no big drama. It's not going to end the world or anything like that. Okay, now I hope you're ready. This is the 3rd chord of this tutorial. If you need a break, go and get yourself a coffee or a nice glass of ice cold water. But let's get on with this. So the D chord, one of my favourite chords. In fact, all of these 3 chords are probably my top 5 chords. And the D chord, you can see the diagram on the screen, and the diagram is showing you that you're using the 1st finger, the 2nd finger, and the 3rd finger. And we have the 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, we have the second finger on the second fret of the top or the high E string, and we have the third finger on the third fret of the what's this? This is the B string. And here, this is really good because you can see the kind of the difference, you know, with each finger being on a different string, and also kind of a lot more separated compared to the A chord where all the fingers were pretty bunched up, and with the E chord where, you know, these two fingers are bunched up. Here you can see that all the fingers are pretty close to the frets here. As I said, close but not on the frets, and they're not like that there, you know, because otherwise. So we have those three fingers very close to the fretboard, and you can probably just feel the fretboard, not the fretboard, the frets, sorry. You can probably just feel them on the tips of your fingers there. And if you look at the diagram, you will see that there is an O on the fourth string, right? So you will be playing the top four strings. Sometimes you will see the D chord with maybe that string here, the fifth string, also shown with an O. I personally, I don't think it's so bad whether you play it with all five strings or just those four strings. I find myself generally playing all five strings. So what problems are there with playing this chord when you're starting out? Well, of course, the same problems as before. If your fingers are too far away from the frets, or if they're on the fret, yeah. Okay, and as I said before, if you're not pressing down enough, which you'll get a combination of maybe a bit of buzzing or a very muted string, which is not good. The other thing is, you know, as I was talking about the O's on those strings, there is an X above this one, and this one, you know, will give not a nasty sound, but it doesn't sound too good when you play that. Right? It doesn't sound too good, you know, compared to if you're playing the A major chord. And as I said, with the A major chord, you normally see an X over this low E string, but ooh, I'm out of tune. Also, you want to make sure you're in tune, but that's another video. So, you know, with that open E string on the A chord, it doesn't sound too bad. But with the D chord, it does sound pretty naff. So try, if you can, try and avoid that. But if you can't, at this stage, don't stress. Don't stress. Don't stress. Don't stress. So let's talk about transitioning, changing, switching from this D chord, and we're going to switch from D to E, because there's a nice little technique that can help you go from D to E or from E to D. So let's look at this chord here. Here's your D chord, and the thing that we're going to use to help us make this chord change a little bit easier is we're going to use this first finger here as an anchor. Okay, something that's going to keep us on the fretboard. What we will do is we will take off these two fingers here, take off the second and the third, keep that there. Now, to make an E chord, what you're going to do is you're going to slide down the fretboard. So down is going that way, away from you. You're going to slide it down one fret so that you are on the first fret of the same string, the G string. And then these two fingers, the ones you've just removed from the D chord, are going to come over here and finish forming the E major chord. So they will go on the second fret with the third finger on that D string and that second finger on the A string. So once again, so here's your D chord. First finger stays on the fretboard. Take these two off. slide down 1 fret, and then put the rest of the chord shape on the 2nd fret of the A string, the 5th string, or the D string or the 4th string, and then boom. And the same will happen in reverse. So when you're going from the E major chord, lift off these 2 fingers, keep this one here. Now you're going to slide up, so coming this way towards you, you're going to slide up 1 fret, like so, and then these 2 fingers are going to come down to finish forming the chord. Now it's a little bit trickier here because the 2nd finger has to kind of tuck in nicely underneath the 1st finger. But this one shouldn't pose too much of a problem, and as it goes down onto the 3rd fret of the B string, and then like so. So like this, sliding down to the E, or taking off, sliding up from the E to the D. So let's strum this together. We're going to do a very short practice progression like we did with the A major chord to the E major chord. We're now going to practice D major chord to the E major chord. So we'll have 2 bars of the D major chord and then 2 bars of the E major chord. And so as we do this, we want to keep the rhythm steady, and obviously we want to try to make the chord changes as smooth as possible. Now remember what I said, before, try not to focus too much on this part here, because if you do, you'll end up stopping this hand, which is the rhythm, which is what drives a song or drives a good chord progression. So try to keep it like this, keep this hand going while you make the change. So one thing you might want to do is stop for a moment, stop the video for a moment, and just have a bit of practice on your own for a second to get used to those chords. So let's try this. So D to E major, D to E major, and we'll keep this nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've looked at the 3 major chords. Congratulations, you've got 3 chords and you're ready to get going. And we've looked at these fingers, we've looked at this hand. But then I want to talk very quickly about the thumb. Now the thumb, the position of the thumb, now if you get a chord, a guitar book, they talk about the position of the thumb being at the back of the fretboard, right at the back. So like that there. Now personally, I don't like that. I find it very uncomfortable. I prefer to have my thumb around here. So it's around this kind of top part of at the back of the fretboard. And I prefer it there because I feel it gives me more control of the chord. When I have the thumb at the back, even though I can still play it, I find it more difficult. So for example, when I'm playing here, the E chord, I find it's uncomfortable. I find it's almost a little bit painful actually. So I prefer it here. And if you watch any of your favorite guitar players, see where they put their thumb. Have a look at them. I don't think there are many that have their thumb at the back here. I don't think so. If you're getting value out of this beginner's guitar tutorial, then why not give me a like, subscribe to the channel, click your notifications, and be ready for more content just like this for complete beginners. We've looked at the A to E chord change, we've looked at the D to the E major chord change, but what about the A to D chord change? Well folks, I'm sorry, this is a touch more difficult because there are no real, unlike for example the A to the E where we have these two fingers kind of close enough to make the switch a little bit easier, or the D to the E where we have this first finger sliding up or sliding down and keeping you on the fretboard. For the A to the D, there's nothing really here that can help you. This one really is a case of practicing, practicing, practicing. And as I said earlier, your fingers will eventually get used to going from one chord to another. It will become so ingrained in your muscle memory and in your soul that it will be no dramas at all. But you have to practice, you have to put the work in. But don't get discouraged if it's difficult at first. Don't think that you're never going to get it, because you will. You really will. Every guitarist has gone through the same dramas. You will too, but you'll get over them, and within a short time you'll be playing them nice and smoothly. So give it time, have some patience, and be persistent, and keep on keeping on. Okay, now before we talk about the songs that you can play with just these three beautiful beginner guitar chords, let's do one final chord progression using all three of these chords. Now you can see the chord progression on the screen right now. You can also see the strumming pattern. Basically the arrow is going down, down, down. There's also the letter D as well, and meaning down. So this is the progression here. We have 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E, 2 bars of D, then a bar of E, then a bar of A. And we're going to repeat that a few times. So let's try to put everything we've looked at in this tutorial together now. So we're going to be playing down strums, okay, just 4 down strums in each bar. So just 2, 3, 4. We also want to be thinking about the chord transition and the little help that you can use to change it. So from the A to the E, remember, keep the second and the third finger together as you lift up and you go across one string, and then put the first finger down. And of course, when you're going from the D to the E, remember that first finger. Keep that first finger going up 1 fret to the D and going down 1 fret to the E. So up, so remove, up, put down the rest of the chord, take off, slide down, put the rest of the chord on. And of course, what I said about the A to the D, this one is going to take a little bit more practice, because with these chord shapes, there is no easy way to get to them. Okay, let's have a go at the progression. It's on the screen for you right now. Let's have a go. So keep your strumming as even as you can. We're going to take this very, very slowly, and we'll go around it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. So congratulations, you've just completed your first guitar chord lesson. You've learned what the chord diagrams show, you've learned a little bit of strumming, you've learned 3 major chords. And now, what are you going to do? You're going to practice. But before you leave this video, I'm going to tell you about a couple of songs, well, more than a couple of songs, that you could play using these 3 chords. So there are many songs that use the chords A major, D major and E major. They are obviously in different chord progressions, but there are some songs that use the same chord progression. So if you're playing Dizzy Miss Lizzie, or you're playing Blue Suede Shoes, or you're playing Johnny Be Good, or even Rock Around the Clock, those songs use the same chord progression. Of course, there are other songs like, for example, Legal Matter, The Tide is High, Louie Louie. They have slightly different chord progressions, but they will still use A, D and E. And also the patterns, the strumming patterns can be played with just down strums. You don't need to try anything flash. So if you go to a website like ultimateguitar.com, if that's the one, I'll put a link down here below. If you go to one of those sites and you select the song, you'll be able to see the chord progressions on there. However, if there's a chord progression you particularly want from this list of songs, then why not get in touch with me? There's a link down below. You can email me and I'll send you a PDF with the chord progression and the lyrics of the song. And it will be a very simplified version of it, just like the way we looked at in this particular guitar tutorial. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this, and I hope this is going to be the start of a beautiful guitar journey for you. Thanks for watching. Happy strumming.